Hi there. Welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Adrienne. So, Adrienne says, I've been in this understanding for 4 years. I used to have a lot of food thoughts, and happily those are gone. Now I have a 7-month-old son who I love dearly. When I'm with him, I look at him and have so many swirling thoughts about him. I think the ones that pop up often are most true. I rarely just enjoy him because I'm having fearful thinking about him that I think is true. I can't wait for him to go to bed at night so my mind can rest. So, Adrienne, um, I'm so curious. I just want you to kind of see if you can see this in a bigger way. So you mentioned that you used to have all of these food thoughts that are happily gone. And although I know food and your son might look like very different things, I want you to kind of just keep seeing for yourself that there's no difference. I mean, there's a difference between your son and food, but there's no difference in the thinking. The thinking is the thinking. Whatever food thoughts you had that felt so true, so pressing, so stressful, so like this means something and I need to do something about this or with this. That's how I'm pretty sure your food thoughts all felt at some point. They were just fast and furious and they felt like they required action and they felt meaningful and important. And now you say they're happily gone. What changed? Food didn't change. You didn't change in some meaningful way. All that happened is those thoughts just look different. There's a different relationship with them. There's, whatever happened along the way, and it would just be us trying to make sense of something we can't really explain. But whatever happened along the way, there used to be a lot of stuff, and now it's just moved out. It's either there and it just doesn't look compelling to you anymore, or it just doesn't show up, or probably a little bit of both. But all that changed was not anything about food, not something that happened within you, really. It's just the nature, like thinking just comes to look different. So I know you know this in theory, but I really want to just remind you and have you see that these thoughts about your son are absolutely no different. So you say, um, when I'm with him, I look at him and have so many thoughts swirling around about him. Okay, so that has nothing to do with him. Again, it's a come back a little bit, zoom out a little bit, and this is just a mind talking. It used to talk about food. It'll talk about your son. Someday, when your son is grown and not a major concern for you anymore, it'll talk about something else. And far before you had him and before food was an issue, it talked about something else. That's just what minds do. So take your son out of it, but again, it's a process. All a mind is an activity. It's just activity. It's just an activity of thinking. So it had one story of interest around food. Now it has a different story of interest, totally understandably, around your 7-month old. This is a big thing that showed up in your life 7 months ago, right? That was never there before. So that's what minds do. They find this new thing where there's some uncertainty, and that becomes the topic. But again, the process has been there and always will be there. Mind is a verb, right? It's just a process of thinking. So now the swirling thoughts talk about him, and you say, I think the ones that pop up most often are most true. Now, again, if we're looking at this from a zoomed out kind of perspective and we're just seeing thought as a process, mind as a verb, mind as a process of thought arising, it's not that any of it's true. It's not that some of it's sort of true and some of it's not true. If we jump into the story and the content, there's a big tendency to want to figure out what's true and what's not true, and to argue with the stories being told, or to just figure out the stories being told. But that's not where we want to look. That's not helpful. You're gonna start to drown in all of those stories, and it's exactly what you're saying. That's where we start to get really afraid, and we rearrange our life to make this a nicer story when that's not helpful. It's not really even doable, because as soon as we make this a nicer story, again, just like you've seen, now it'll just find something else. There's no true rest in that ever for any of us. There is no true rest in helping our mind find a nicer story or seeing through the scary stories or any of that. ultimately, now it might feel relatively helpful in the moment. That's that's not real freedom at all. That's not where real change comes from. Where real freedom and change comes from is seeing that it's a story, that it is a process. It once talked about food, it now talks about your son. Someday it will talk about something else. But that's okay. That's simply a mind doing what a mind does, doing its job, trying to help, and it doesn't have to affect us when we start to see it for what it is, that there's nothing in that content we need to worry about. So when you say, again, I think the thoughts that pop up most often are most true. I would have you almost consider, like, what if the opposite? Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. And I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. I just want you to try this on and kind of lean into this. When a mind is repeating something over and over again, that's when I kind of see it as least true. Now, I can say that to you. That I'm not saying that in my own experience. If my mind's repeating something and I'm kind of caught up in it, yeah, that makes sense, right? I'm going to think whatever keeps coming back, wow, there must be something to this. But I want you to play with and kind of try on, what if it's the opposite? Why would your mind need to repeat something constantly if it's true? It doesn't go around repeating other truths all the time. It just, and I know that's how it can feel, but really, the fact that it's being constantly repeated and it's feeling very fearful, and I'm guessing there isn't anything obvious to do, all of that is evidence that this is just a mind on repeat. It's just this. It's just a mind minding. A mind, it's just thought thinking. That's all it is. There's nothing in this you need to do to keep your son safe. You're already keeping your son safe. You're already doing what you need to do as a mother. You are lived. You're lived to do those things. This, and especially we can see when this is just repeating itself over and over, this is not about safety. I mean, ultimately, that's its job. It's trying for safety. You don't need to get in the content of this to keep your son okay. So the more this is repeating things over and over again, I'd kind of have you again play with, like, maybe that's showing you that it's not true. That if anything, it kind of moves in that other direction. That's exactly what you don't need to listen to, because it's just a tape on repeat. So again, see if you can just play with this idea that you're lived, your son is lived, all is well. You're doing what makes sense in each and every moment. And then there's this process of narrating and labeling and talking and worrying and predicting and projecting and all of that that's always happening. And it used to happen around food topics. Now it happens around my kid topics. Someday it'll happen around some other topics. But this is what we want to see. And this is not necessary. I'm not saying you won't listen to it. We all do. We get a little caught up in it. But we don't need it. This isn't giving you wisdom. It's not living your life. It's not keeping your son safe. Ultimately, it's not keeping you safe. When something is repeated over and over again, it's that mechanical, way that the mind works. You will see what needs to be done beyond that. Another way to say it is, if this is repeating, looking at your son and thinking all this fearful stuff, yet there's nothing to do, there's nothing to do. So, meaning when it's just worrying, when it's just saying, what if? When it's just concern, making up stories about the future. That sort of shows us when there's something to do, we do it. When your child is going to put something dangerous in his mouth, you run over and grab it. You don't have to think about that. But when your mind is just talking about what if he chokes someday, well, there's nothing to do, because there is no problem. There's simply a mind telling a story over and over. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much, Adrienne, for sending your question. And thanks everyone for listening. And I will see you guys back here next Monday. Have a great week, everyone.